other stuff going on. Thanks.
Thank you, awesome leader Mitch. Well, good morning, and welcome to the journey. I'm not sure if we should have a funeral service today or not after last night. Wow, that game. Probably gonna be eating a lot of comfort food this week because, any Boise State fans shed any tears last night? Yeah. We prayed, but sometimes God says no. I don't know. But anyway, hey, I so appreciate every one of you for being here today on a bright, sunny, hot day. You could be out doing something else, but you're here, and I'm just glad that you're here. And I want to also say thank you to those of you who are here for the first time. And if you are here for the first time and you've never been here before, just want to say you are welcome here. We're glad that you're here. Wherever you're at in your spiritual journey, it doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter if you like me or disagree with me or whatever. I'm glad that you're here, and I hope that you keep coming back. We'd just love to have you. And I'd love to meet you, too, before you leave. So if you just, hang out, and just love to meet you, say hi if we haven't yet. Well, this morning we're going to finish our 8-week series called Attractive Faith. And for those here and for those who will listen online who are Christ followers or part of the journey, I'm going to present a big challenge to you today, all right? So I'm just giving you a little heads up. If you're not a Christ follower here today, I am very glad that you're here, and I believe that the principle of what we'll discuss today will challenge you too. If you're a student, listen up, because this will challenge you, and I want to present this to you as well. But it's a challenge for better, for bigger, for greater things. It's my hope that each person here will respond to and take the challenge that I believe that God is setting before us. As we've been exploring over the last several weeks, living out an attractive faith is not only possible, but it's also essential for those who are Christ followers. An attractive faith is key to our calling, and it's foundational to the mission and vision of the journey as well. God has wired us for attraction. He's wired us for attraction. And that's a good thing. Attraction is inviting. And if you think about the word attraction, it's inviting. It's pleasant when you think about it. It's adventurous. It's inspiring. It's attention-grabbing. It's even hope-filled. Attractiveness, it invokes a positive response in us and in our life. Whereas something that's unattractive brings about unresponsiveness at best or repulsiveness at worst, negative reactions and so forth. It's why God's created good things such as love, beauty, nature, blue skies that turn orange in the evening, like some football teams who can't win but on their first day. Oh, I feel so bad about that. But, he's good in creating that, right? It's why God created the opposite sex. We're attracted to, right? Big cuts of juicy steak. It's like, yeah, that's attractive. And, of course, football season is attractive, okay? No matter what it is. We're drawn to what's attractive, whereas we're oblivious to or repulsed by things that are not attractive or unattractive. Politics, I will have to disagree with you on that, Josh. Other unattractive things, and I'll be quiet. I won't mention other teams right now. Not right now, anyway. But religion that is controlling, instead of setting free. Nasal drip is unattractive, Josh. Women with hairy armpits and a tank top, that's kind of unattractive. Men in a two-piece swimsuit, that's unattractive as well. We tend to run from things like that, right? But Christianity is attractive. It is attractive. It's an attractive faith. It has an attractive message. It's a message of love, of hope, of grace, forgiveness, a God who gave everything to reach out and redeem a broken race living in a broken world. That is attractive. That message is attractive. Personally expressing to those around us a faith that's attractive is absolutely essential to those who've chosen to follow Christ, and it's central to who we are as a church for the spiritually curious as well. But our mission, is to lead people into a life-changing relationship with Jesus Christ. That's our mission here at The Journey. And to do that, we must become a place that spiritually curious people find irresistible or attractive, right? You know what else I'm attracted to? I love not love stories, but I love stories. Stories of success, stories of comeback, stories of resiliency, victory, where someone lays it out on the line, gives it their all, doesn't give up, doesn't give in, no matter the cost, and the goal is reached, the reward is seen, lives are changed. I love stories like that. Anyone with me on that? Love stories like that. Joe Montana was called the comeback kid for a reason, because he never gave up. And he's got 4 Super Bowl rings to show, okay? Greatest quarterback in history, not Tom Brady, sorry. But Abe Lincoln, another one. Life of failure and disappointments and letdowns and lost elections and so forth, became probably, arguably, the greatest president in the United States that we had. At the time, he was able to hold the country together through a civil war, and under his leadership, set the slaves free. Phenomenal. It's a phenomenal story of comeback, of laying it on the line. Of course, we know he lost his life through it, but look what came out of it. The likes of Braveheart, okay, William Wallace, laying it on the line. Or even just we see this summer all the fires around and firefighters going out there and laying it on the line to fight fires, to protect homes and protect people and so forth. I have strong admiration for them. I know so many of them. The signers of the Declaration of Independence, they were all in. Benjamin Franklin, he said this, he said, "We must all hang together, or assuredly we will all hang separately," is what he said. They knew what they were getting into when they signed that Declaration of Independence. They knew they had to lay it out there. They knew that they were all in or not. They were resolved. They had to move forward, And we all love stories like that. Nobody likes a story with a bad ending. Nobody likes a story that doesn't involve conflict, risk, sacrifice, and a sense of overcoming. It's why we pay to see movies like that. A number of years ago, Cinderella Man, right? James Braddock, who fought for his family through the Depression and was also a fighter. Great story. It just came out on DVD, 42, with Jackie Robinson. Okay, talk about fighting through hardship and so forth. I love the line where Harrison Ford's character, his manager or owner or whatever it was, he said this to Jackie Robinson. He goes, "I need you to be strong enough to not fight." That's what he said, and because it was such a battle with his race and everything. It was just powerful. But something that each of these stories and the central figure in them, and so many others like them have, is something called resolve. And that's the title of our message today, is Resolved. Okay? And we're going to watch a clip from one of my all-time favorite movies, Remember the Titans, which is apropos for football season. So let's go ahead and run that clip and think about the word resolved as we watch that.
I've got holding on 78 White.
Are you trying to cheat my boys out the game? 15 more yards. Listen, let them play, ref. Let them play. Please don't fight. Let them play.
A big part of the reason why I love it is because it's based on a true story. Based on a true story. And again, what a way to start the football season. Don't let them gain another yard. Just love that. Resolve. Laying it on the line. Saying, this is it. It's going to happen. We're going to do it. Make up your minds. We're going to go forward with it. So let's look at resolve. There's a couple of definitions, and we'll look at both of them. The first one on the screen here: to settle or find a solution to a problem, dispute, or contentious matter. That's one definition, to resolve something. When we were camping a few weeks ago, we rented a wave runner, and we encountered a little problem when one of my kids, who I let drive, but I'm not going to mention this person's name because I'll get in trouble, decided to spin donuts while we were out on the lake. And so I'm holding on to my kid spinning donuts, and there's one of my kids behind me, and And so this kid of mine decided to spin a little bit too tight, and I just felt the centrifugal force. I'm like, we're not going over. We're going over. And we flipped and rolled the wave runner, right? And so the one who was driving is freaking out in the water. I'll mention Michael was screaming to be annoying, while the other one was screaming because she was freaked out. And so after a lot of laughter and telling Michael to, finally zip it, I resolved the issue by turning the thing back over, which was no easy task because I think it was really heavy, okay? And then I got back in the driver's seat, not another kid. Anyway, but, that's not the definition of resolve we're looking at for today. The definition we're looking at today is this: to come to a definite or earnest decision about something, to determine, to do something, to decide firmly on a course of action, okay? Resolved. I'm resolved to do this. I'm resolved to do that. If someone is resolved to do something, the course is set. There's no changing that person's mind. They're all in. Just like the scene from Remember the Titans, right? The defensive coach laid his position, his reputation, and his job on the line. He resolved to do what was right. The team resolved to ignore the bad calls from the official, except for, of course, that one guy who he gave up. And they resolved to make the other team remember forever the night that they played the Titans. It was resolved, and they moved forward with it. The opposite is true, too. If someone isn't resolved about something, they're undecided, wishy-washy, they can change their mind, they waver, and oftentimes their goals aren't reached, nothing happens, and good, powerful stories never get written. Sometimes I'm unresolved, and I waver when I'm out to eat because I can't decide what I want to eat. It all looks so good, right? But a lot of people live their lives that way, wavering, unresolved. And so what does the Bible have to say about being resolved? How does this tie in with closing the series on attractive faith? Scripture actually has a lot to say about being resolved and about wavering. It's something that God himself takes notice of in our lives. Way back in the Old Testament book called Numbers, chapter 13, number 13, there's a story about an incredible opportunity that God had set before his followers, the people of Israel. Okay, incredible opportunity. God had just worked a truckload of incredible miracles to set the people of Israel free from slavery in Egypt. And these weren't like little coincidence-type miracles, right? They were big, visible ones, huge miracles, okay? Plagues, the coercion of a king, the parting of a sea so that 2 million people and all their stuff can cross safely on dry land. Pillar of cloud in the day, a pillar of fire by night. It was God's presence. They saw these miracles with their own eyes. It wasn't like one person or two people. There were 2 million of them that saw these things. God had good things in store for them, a new home, a promised land, as it says, flowing with milk and honey, though I would probably prefer land flowing with chocolate and ice cream, but it's okay. They can have their own. But, it was a land with, it would be peace and security, to become a powerful, influential, world-changing nation. Incredible plans for these people is what God had. God had shown them that he was with them and that wouldn't change. And so now as they're free from bondage and in transition in the desert, God gives them an opportunity of a lifetime. He instructs Moses to send 12 men, one from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, into the land that God was calling them to take. They were sent in as spies to scout out the land, to bring back a report in order to prepare the new nation of 2 million people for a historical opportunity. And so they went in there. But when they got back to town, 10 of the spies were wavering on the opportunity. Only 2 men named Joshua and Caleb were resolved on the decision to take the land. Just 2 men had that resolve. And it's interesting how much a wavering, unresolved attitude can influence a multitude of people around them. The 10 who wavered caused the entire nation to waver in fear. Let's read about what happened here. They gave Moses this account. Well, we went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey and chocolate and ice cream, and look, here's its fruit. But the people who lived there, man, they're powerful. And the cities are fortified and are very large. And we even saw descendants of Anak there. And there are all these big, ugly people. And they're gross and they're, and so forth. And then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we certainly can do it. He was resolved. But the men who had gone up with him said, yeah, we can't attack those people. They're stronger than we are. And they're big and mean, and we're small and not mean. And the land swallows up people. And it was like watching the fear-mongering news at night, okay? I mean, that's what was going on. And it spread to everybody. All that wavering. And what happened was the people complained and they cried out. They caused a near revolt. They wanted new leadership. A lot of them wanted to go back to Egypt, to the safety of being a slave, okay? And so God basically said, okay, have it your way. Since you've rejected this golden opportunity, you don't have to take the land. But you'll stay and you'll wander in the desert for the next 40 years. No rest, no home, no accomplishment, no world impact for you. I'll save that for a future generation. And that was basically his message to them. And so for the next 40 years, the entire nation got their way, and they regretted it. They wandered on the desert without a home. This summer, my family, we wandered, and we didn't have a home for 5 weeks, okay? And let me tell you, that was torture. Now imagine 2 million people doing that for 40 years. And they're all up in your stuff and in your face, and you can't it's like, I want to go home. I want to find a place that's home on my own land, right? 40 years. They had to suffer through that. Now, God never deserted them, but the opportunity was lost for everyone 20 years old and older. They would all die in the desert, except for those under 20 and 2 people who were resolved to move forward, Joshua and Caleb. In fact, this is what Scripture says about that. It says, this is what God said. He said, not a man of this evil generation shall see the good land I swore to give your forefathers, except Caleb. He will see it, and I will give him and his descendants the land he set his feet on, because he followed the Lord wholeheartedly. Okay? Wholeheartedly. They were resolved, wholehearted. By the way, Joshua is not mentioned in there because Joshua was Moses' successor, so he was already in there. Now, before I jump into how all this ties together, I want to make a point here. Feel free to write it down somewhere. We still haven't gotten to the first blank in your note sheet and your handout. We're going to be here all day long. No, just kidding. So here's the point. Don't think for a second that what you do doesn't matter. And don't ever think for a second that what you don't do doesn't matter. And don't ever think that your actions or non-actions have no effect on other people. What the 10 spies did not do affected 2 million people in the desert that day. They had no resolve to jump on the opportunity set before them. And 2 million people wandered in the desert for 40 years. What Joshua and Caleb did do, or at least they tried to do, they had resolve that not only affected them, but their descendants. And those who followed after them were blessed beyond imagination. And I'm going to try to hopefully revisit this point a little bit later. You following me on that? We are not islands to ourselves. We aren't. Now here's how all this ties together. God sets opportunities before his followers. They're good opportunities. They're great ones. They have to do with God's promises, like the promised land. They have to do with peace, with security, overcoming, advancement, influence, changing the world. It's kingdom work. It's powerful. God sets those opportunities before us. And while the future is good, milk and honey and chocolate and ice cream, okay, there's opposition that waits us. It's not easy. There will be battle, sometimes all-out war. But God is right with us through the adventure, the fear, the pain, and the victory. And we have 2 choices. We can be resolved like Joshua and Caleb, or we can be unresolved. and waver. And not only miss out on the opportunity that God has set before us, but cause others to miss out as well. And that, unfortunately, is how what a lot of churches do. They waver. They're not resolved. A lot of Christ followers, a lot of Christians, they get distracted and sidetracked. They get fearful. They complain, make excuses. They want the comfort of whatever Egypt is like to them, or whatever Egypt looks like in their minds. They spend years wandering, never really home, never really at peace, never accomplishing great things, never taking ground, never impacting culture or influencing nations. So the challenge today, and I'll revisit, are you resolved? Are you resolved? Are you resolved in seeing God's purposes come to pass in your life? Are you resolved to pursuing the promises that God has for you? Are you resolved to see your kids walking in God's will and pursuing His destiny for their lives? Or do you waver on that? Are you resolved to get to know God? Or is it, I'll just kind of let it happen, whatever. Are you resolved to growing in your faith? Or do you just waver? Are you resolved to developing a faith that's attractive? Or do you just hope it just kind of happens by accident or by default? Are you resolved to sharing that faith? Are you resolved to teaming with your church and seeing your church just explode in terms of reaching people, changing lives, and influencing others? Do you want to be part of something more than just another run-of-the-mill neighborhood church? Are you resolved to live this life to the fullest potential in Christ? And some here are resolved. Some of us here are resolved in some areas, but not in others, which kind of makes us unresolved. So let's look at what resolved looks like, and now we can look at it at our green sheets, so we're not going to be here forever. Okay. First one, resolve means going after it. Resolved means going after it, all right? There's doing whatever it takes, like that lion, right, on stilts. I'm going to go after it, man. I know I'm little, but you know the goal. You understand the goal. You're convinced that God is calling you to that goal. You're not going to let excuses or distractions get in your way. You know, when we took the group of students to San Francisco this summer on the missions trip, let me tell you, we were resolved to get from here to San Francisco in less than a day, in like 10 or 11 hours. I mean, we were resolved, okay? We didn't waver. We weren't like, well, we'll get there when we get there, you know? Because that kind of attitude will cause us to wander, make a lot of stops, waste time and money, you know, want other things, get distracted, and so forth, right? We were resolved, okay? We went after it. We charted the course. We stopped only for necessities. Gas, toilets, and In-N-Out Burger, okay? Those were the necessities, and that's what we stopped for, and you know, got to have those, okay? Here's what Paul said about going after it. He said this, be on the screen. Not that I've already obtained all this, or have already been made perfect, but I press on to take hold of that for which Christ Jesus took hold of me. Brothers, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining towards what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. Okay, write that down, read it later, because there's a lot in there. He goes, man, I'm not just hanging out. I'm not just wavering. I'm not just, I don't know what to do. I'm kind of bored. You know, no, he says, man, I'm pressing on. I'm going forward. I'm going after it. I'm finding out what this is, what God has for me. You know, in other words, Paul says, I'm resolved. So I go after it with everything. Okay, next, resolve. In terms of church means teaming together. Okay, teaming together. Actually, in any situation, true resolve means working with others because we need people. But I love how, remember the Titans was based, as I mentioned, on a true story. But even more than that, one of the biggest obstacles, if not the biggest that they faced, wasn't the other team. It was overcoming their differences, overcoming their racial differences, their different personalities, and so forth. Rewatch the movie if you like, but at the time, racism was not only a big issue, racism was accepted. I mean, it was okay to be a racist, start a change, they're trying to force some change. But it was hard to fight against. You think you have disagreements with people today or in your own family. Imagine what it was like for that team. And that was, again, based on a true story. What they had to go through and endure in order for true team to happen. And in order for them to win together, it took resolve on the part of the coaches and the players and even their families to make it happen. Listen, unity is powerful. God knows it. The enemy knows, our souls knows it. We can accomplish far more in working together than we could ever do alone and on our own. It's true in sports. It's true in war. It's true in business. It's true in family. It's true in faith. It's true in church. Unity means we need to work together, work through differences, not just bailing when things get tough. If you follow football, you look at Rex Ryan and the New York Jets, and they're a team with zero unity, other than if they have the same colors on their back. And it's about it. Nothing. Their team's a big mess. Things are falling apart, and the season hasn't even started yet for them. If you're a Jets fan, I'm so sorry, because they're a joke. They really are. Whereas other teams, like the 49ers, okay, united. And I'm not just biased. Well, I'm biased, yeah. But they're united. The players love their coach. He loves them. There's loyalty to him, to each other. They have a goal to win the Super Bowl, to get back there and win it. But it's more than just a goal that unites them. There's an attitude of loyalty between them, and it's going to take them far. It's not just, we got the same colors, or we happen to be on the same team, we signed contracts. It's, man, I care about you, and I care about you, and I trust you, and I've worked through some things with you, though I don't like you, didn't like you at first. I'm not saying you. I'm just, sorry. No, I just realized what I was doing. I'm talking examples of the football team is what I'm talking about, okay? I like everybody here. All right, so, you following what I'm saying, though? Okay. The next one, I'm going to move on. I'm going to get smacked. Okay, so next one. Resolved means being all in. Okay, all in. And this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where being resolved is defined. This is where costs are counted. You understand that there's a price to pay. Sacrifices are made. You put things in your life on the line. You even put your life on the line. Not just things, but your whole life. And so we have an attitude of, I'm resolved to have an attractive faith. I know it's going to cost me, but I'm resolved. I'm resolved to know and follow Jesus wherever he leads. I know it's going to cost me something, but I'm resolved to do it. I'm resolved to living to the potential that God has called me to. I know it's going to cost me some of my veg time or my play time or my whatever time, but I'm resolved to do that. I'm resolved to teaming with my church. Resolved to changing lives and impacting the culture. It's going to cost me, but I'm resolved. An attractive faith is one that is displayed in sacrifice, in being all in for the sake of others. Well, how do you know that? It's Jesus' attitude. Here's what Jesus said on the screen. If anyone would come after me, he must deny himself, and take up his cross daily and follow me. He's not talking about wearing a cross necklace, right? He's talking about a big old thing that's heavy, okay? For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for me will save it. What good is it for a man to gain the whole world and yet lose or forfeit his very self? And Jesus is saying, hey, guys, if you want to follow me, if you want to be like Joshua or Caleb and take the opportunity that God has set before you, you've got to be all in. You've got to lay it down. You've got to lay it on the line. You've got to be resolved. Because if you waver, you'll wander. And you'll be like every other average Christian, every other average neighborhood church, living for yourself and never possessing all that God has for you, either as an individual or collectively as a church. You will lose in the process. It's going to cost me time. to serve others. It's going to cost me time to get involved. It's going to cost me time and brain power to grow. It's going to cost me time to pray. I posted something on Facebook last night. I posted this: every prayer that we don't pray is a prayer left unanswered. And there's a lot of us, I'm talking to myself as well, we miss out on praying a lot. And so God, he didn't ask for it, so, Though I did pray for Boise State and decided to say no. Anyway. Back to that point earlier. Don't ever think that what you do doesn't matter and affect others, and don't think that what you don't do doesn't matter or affect others. And this includes our time. This includes prayer. This includes giving in whatever way. Back in February was the last time I believe it was the last time I actually spoke on giving. And I talked about preventative giving. And I just want to mention a couple of things from that talk. There are three types of church giving. The first type of church giving is when we give directly to something that'll help immediately. We're made aware of a crisis or an urgent need. Someone will lose their home or have their power shut off. Maybe it's a special project, or we see a picture of, a starving kid, or, and the strings of our hearts get plucked. We feel moved to give. We want to be part of the solution and part of the rescue. We want to make a difference, and that's a good thing. That kind of giving can be powerful, and a lot can get done. Lives are immediately affected, and that's how most Americans and most church people give that way. The second type of church giving is where someone gives regularly a percentage of their income to a local church that they believe in, so that the church can hire staff, buy land, build buildings, have incredible student programs, create an atmosphere that moving towards being irresistible environments so that unchurched people of all ages can come, where people who have never been to church or those who haven't been in a long time can come and feel embraced and meet God, come back, see their lives and eternities begin to change forever. They know that their money is going to help create things for their kids and the kids of others that will make a difference in their life. My junior high kid actually wants to go to church. My family is better off than before. I've heard that. Because of something called church and because people give. And this kind of giving is steady and it's ongoing. It's not flashy or emotional or because it always feels good. It's not because the pastor showed pics of starving kids or the pastor's starving kids. It's just because of committed giving and knowing that something's being built. The third type of church giving is Timmy Tightwad and Greedy Gus, who hold on, to his cash because he or she feels entitled or that everything should be free for them. I don't think there's anyone here like that, but I just thought I'd mention it. But here's just the point about preventative giving I want to make. One of our ministry philosophies that we've adopted here at the Journey, specifically in regards to kids, but it applies across the board, is reach them before you have to rescue them. Or reach them so that you don't have to rescue them. Right? There's a difference between reaching and rescuing. I think we all understand the difference between intervention and prevention, right? There's a difference. Intervention is rescuing someone. It's intervening in a crisis. It's the Man of Steel. Love that movie, by the way. Man of Steel showing up in the nick of time to rescue somebody, to save the day. It's fixing what's broken, saving a life. It can be exciting, intense, dramatic. Sometimes, we come through. Other times we don't. But man, it was worth a try. That's intervention giving. Prevention involves taking necessary steps to see that intervention isn't needed. So we don't have to intervene. It's slow, methodical, and maybe even boring. It's not flashy, but it also saves lives and marriages and kids and families. It just takes a different approach. And in America, as Americans, we tend to learn or lean more towards intervention than prevention in so many areas of our lives. Okay, and you'll see how. We let marriages get so bad that unless intervention happens, we move toward divorce. And there's little or no preventative maintenance. Am I right? Same thing with health. We don't exercise or eat right. We fill up on junk food, okay? I fill up on junk food, all right? And when there's a health problem comes, we want a doctor to intervene right now and make me like I was before. Now, right? We want the intervention instead of the prevention. Exercise, eat healthy, that kind of stuff. The first car, I mentioned this a number of months ago, that I ever owned, I didn't realize that cars needed regular maintenance besides washing it. I washed it. And so it went about 80,000 miles without an oil change. And guess what? I had problems. It blew head gaskets and, then a rod. And the mechanic had to intervene and order a new engine for my car. So $350 worth of oil changes could have prevented a $3,500 engine bill. But intervention giving is emotional. It's measurable. You feel good about it. You know how many kids you've fed or how many bills you've paid. Preventative giving, though, is not emotional or measurable, but it's far superior. And I asked this question back in February, and I'll ask it again. It's a trick question, but I'll ask it. Would you rather give to an organization that rescues young girls from human traffickers, or would you rather give to an organization that prevents young girls from being trafficked? Well, would you rather give to an organization that rescues kids from abusive homes or give to one that prevents abuse of kids? Well, the answer probably for most of us is, we want to do both, okay? Sure, I'd rescue little Kyra, but once she's rescued and you look into her eyes and you see the pain that she's been through and the scars on her little body, you think, this should have never happened. It shouldn't have happened. This should have been prevented. And the problem is that you can't measure what's been prevented because you just don't know. There's great value in preventative giving, but it's not measurable. Giving to a good local church is preventative giving. When I mention a good local church, it's one that cares about people and cares about kids and the unchurched and marriages and families, no matter how big or small the church. It's a church where, because of what's being taught, because of relationships that are being built, because of healthy environments where people are meeting Christ and lives are changing, potential tragedies of all sorts are being avoided and not happening. They're being prevented. The problem is you can't measure what's being prevented because they haven't happened, right? You can't. You can't measure how many kids won't be taken out of abusive homes because moms and dads are coming to Christ and things are healing up. You can't measure how much alcoholism is being prevented because kids are shown a better way. You can't measure how many teen suicides won't happen because they have a group of students around them who value them, or because they have a pastor or a friend or a leader that has shown them how to follow Christ. You can't measure how many divorces get prevented. You can't measure how many teenage pregnancies will be averted because, she has a youth leader that loves her and has taken time to build self-confidence in her and inner strength. You can't measure these things. And giving to this is not emotional. And those of you here who are regular givers and tithers, like we are, faithful month after month, 10% off the top, or whatever percentage, it's sacrificial. It's not emotional. It's not flashy. You give to pay our small staff, to heat the building, to pay the mortgage, to provide ministry. You have no idea the impact that you're making in the tragic stories that will never happen because of that. I will always tithe and give at least 10%, if not more, and here's why. I believe that God has instructed me through the pages of the Bible, number one. Number two, God's blessed me with the means, and I trust him to continue to provide, number two. But number three, I know that my natural propensity to selfishness is great. And the road it would lead me down if I stopped tithing. And I also, number four, believe in the power of a local church. I believe in it. I grew up, as you all know, in San Francisco, which is why I like the blessed 49ers. But I grew up there, and I don't know where I would be today if it weren't for the church that I was a part of. I wouldn't be here. I know that. I wouldn't be married to Wendy. And I wouldn't have the kids that I have. That's weird to think about, especially my kids. As a brain baker. But, some of the kids that I grew up with in San Francisco are now dead. Others are strung out on drugs and living destructive lives. Some are doing well. I ran into a high school friend a few years ago who was homeless. Went to high school with her. She was homeless. Oh my goodness. But it's not just the city I grew up in. I'm also very aware of my own potential for sin and irresponsibility and immorality and lack of discipline. God used a local church to prevent this life from becoming another tragedy. And it's a huge reason why I do what I do today. There's no way to truly measure what the church has prevented in my life. I like when someone said, they said this, you can't change the world if you're living like the world. And you can't change the world if you're giving like the world. Now, today's talk isn't just about giving, okay? But it includes it because we're talking about resolve, about being all in, about giving our lives away for something much better. The journey is something that began not in my heart, in God's heart and in his mind. The plans that he has for this church don't include just settling for being just another, run-of-the-mill church. God hasn't given us 5 acres here, okay? Most of them are like, whoa, okay? He hasn't given us 5 acres for no reason, just to sit on and look at and say, well, I hope those weeds go away, okay? On one of the busiest streets in Boise, just to watch the traffic go by. Wow, there's a lot of cars. That's kind of cool, okay? He hasn't done that for those reasons. He hasn't, or because we're content and like small churches. He's given us land to develop and use. He's given us a city to influence and impact, lives around us to change, spiritually curious people to introduce to Jesus. Did you know that part of the reason that God set up the church has to do with that he wants us to be part of repairing a broken world? We live in a broken world that needs to be repaired, and to come and show something that's better and do something better. And I'm talking about the brokenness from broken people to a broken government to broken environment. We're called to leave this world better than when we entered it. That's resolve. Something that's been on my heart, and I've shared it with a few people, are single parent moms. Not to feel sorry for, but to come alongside and support. I know what it's like to be a parent who's married. And it's hard. I can't imagine what it's like if I didn't have Wendy or if Wendy didn't have me. I want to do more, and we're going to start doing more to come alongside and reach out to those in our midst and in our community who are single, to kids who need dads. That's usually what the case is. Our mission doesn't stop here in Boise. The journey is called to touch and influence nations. At summer camp, I'm just going to keep you for a few minutes over. Some of you may not know. We're going over? All right, yeah. Food fest anyway, right? But at summer camp this summer, we took 13 students to summer camp, and it was awesome. It was a great time, lots of fun and everything. Well, the speaker presented a challenge to the students. And when he asked how many of them felt like God was calling them to, there are like 100 students there altogether, but 13 from our church. How many of the students that they felt like God was calling to foreign missions? There were either 7 or 8 of our 13 that stood up. We never talk about foreign missions here at the Journey. That's because God is working in their hearts and saying, I've got a call on your life. And it's to touch nations. When we were in San Francisco, one of the students called Mom back and said, Mom, I know my calling. It's to be a missionary. And this person named a country in South America. We didn't talk about other countries in South America. It's because God, and so I look at our young people and what God is stirring in their lives and their hearts, and I'm thinking, that means touching nations, not just Boise. What are we as a church going to do to prepare them to live out God's call in their life? You following? Because we have a responsibility to do that. And I'm excited about that. And I want to get on board with that and say, all right, these are opportunities that are set before us. And just like with Joshua and Caleb and Israel, God's presenting an opportunity before us to step into his plans and his promises, which are great and long-lasting, and it's going to take resolve for all of us. So challenge, back to challenge. Do you want to live a life of resolve or a life of wavering, like most people? Are you resolved to develop a faith that's attractive and to sharing that faith? If not, I challenge you to that resolve, whatever it takes. Are you resolved to making your life count? If not, I challenge you to make that your resolve, because God's placed you here for a reason. Are you resolved to be a light in your workplace, your home, your neighborhood, your school? Shine bright like a diamond. Okay, I hate that song. But to be a light, okay? Are you resolved to be part of this team here at the Journey? If not, I invite you. Are you resolved to grow spiritually and relationally in your walk with Christ? Are you resolved? Do you want to see yourself saying something like, this and following up with it, saying things like this? I don't ever want to miss another opportunity to change a life. Then you to be resolved. I don't ever want to see another person enter this place and walk away lonely or feeling rejected or uncared for. It takes resolve. I don't ever want to see another single mom that I know cry herself to sleep because she feels helpless and hopeless, and there's something that I could have done. Then it takes resolve. I don't ever want to see another teen run away from home or miss the calling that God has placed on his or her life because I refuse to give or be available. Or this, I don't ever want to see this church not make our budget again because I know that what happens here matters. It takes resolve. Regarding giving, I want to challenge you. If you aren't giving regularly or tithing, just do it. Just be resolved. Don't make any more excuses or complaints like the people of Israel did. And I challenge you, as the Bible instructs, to give 10%. Be resolved to live off of 90 and not 110. All right? You know what I'm talking about there. Okay? They're called visas. Quit tipping God as if he were your waitress. Okay? If it's not 10%, then select a percentage of your income to give. A percentage, not just select one that's sacrificial. Okay? Where you feel it, where you know it matters, where you're giving something up because you realize that being resolved costs. Because, I think if my giving doesn't impact me, I wonder if it's impacting anybody else. Just a thought. I could be wrong on that. But I told you today would be a challenge, right? Aren't you glad you got up early and came to church? Listen, following Christ takes resolve. It may cost me everything, but I know that there's no other way to live a life that's worthwhile, that's more fulfilling, that's going to make a greater impact on this world. I'm convinced of that. Jim Elliot, a missionary to South America, Ecuador, he said this: "He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain that which he cannot lose." Are you resolved? If not, do you want to be? If so, then go after it. Team together. Be all in. I am. There's a group of us here that are already. I invite you to join us. Let's stand. I'm going to just kind of close with this thought here. When I was a college student, young college student, I was probably 19 or 20. I went on this missions trip with our church group. And it was a local missions trip, so it was out to Southern City in California, a town where we're building and helping and serving. And one night we had a campfire. And the music pastor, music leader who was there, he put this challenge to us. And he said to all of us who were sitting there, and there were probably 30 or 40 of us, he goes, "You see that fire there in the middle?" And he gave all of us a stick. And he challenged us. He goes, God's got a call in your life, and you can choose to be a stick and try to burn separately. good luck. Or you can throw yourself in. It means being all in. And you can burn bright because you're burning together with everyone else. And you'll become more effective that way because a single stick, you're not going to do much. But this bonfire here, it's going to be effective. And I remember taking that to heart and wondering, oh, wow, this means I'm going to make a decision. You know, college-age students don't always like to make decisions. And I sat there, and he led some songs, and I was just really thinking about it. And after about 10 minutes or so, I thought, yeah, I'm all in. And I threw my stick in, and I've never regretted it, never left. And I'm thankful for that. You know, and I can't make any specific promises about being resolved. But there are some general ones that I can make. It will be hard. It will cost you. You'll get hurt at times. You'll get tired and frustrated at times too. You'll be tested. There will be sacrifice. There will be letdowns. There will be pain. And lives will be changed. Souls will be saved. You will be different. The world will be better. Young people will experience what it is to hear God and follow him. Families will learn something called healing and experience it. Needs will be met. Cities and nations, including this one, will be impacted. And you will see the power of God at work in and through your